8:15 in the morning, April 21st, 2026. And just like that, without warning, without headlines, without even a whisper loud enough for the press to catch, something inside Buckingham Palace shifted so quietly it almost felt invisible. But make no mistake, what happened in that moment was not small. It was not routine, it was not harmless, it was a calculated surgical strike that insiders are already calling one of the most ruthless royal maneuvers of the modern era, and the most chilling part? Almost no one saw it coming. Stay with this, because every second of this story feels like peeling back layers of something the palace never wanted exposed, and by the time you reach the end, you'll realize this was never just a family issue, this was strategy, power, survival. For nearly a century, there has been one ritual inside the monarchy that never changes: the sovereign's red box. Every morning, rain or shine, war or peace, that iconic leather case lands directly on the monarch's desk. No detours, no interruptions, no exceptions. It is the heartbeat of the British state, the silent rhythm of power itself. But 2 days ago, that rhythm broke. The red box didn't go where it always goes. It was diverted, redirected, quietly, deliberately, under heavy security to the office of the Lord Chamberlain. And listen carefully, this was not a mistake, not a delay, not a mix-up. This was intentional. This was controlled. This was, as one insider described it, a constitutional execution. A move so precise that royal historians are already comparing it to the shockwaves of 1936, the abdication crisis that once shook the crown to its core. While the world was distracted, scrolling through celebrity gossip, arguing over politics, chasing distractions, the real story was unfolding behind palace walls. A document finalized, signed, sealed, and aimed directly at the House of Sussex. This wasn't rumor, this wasn't speculation, this was action. And inside room 1844 of Buckingham Palace, something happened that insiders are now calling Project Silver. That name alone should tell you everything. Cold, metallic, calculated, not emotional, not impulsive, strategic. Now picture this: Montecito, California. Quiet, too quiet. For the last 48 hours, something has felt off. No public appearances, no statements, just silence, but not peaceful silence. No, this is the kind of silence that follows a shock so deep it hasn't even been processed yet. Sources close to Meghan say she was pacing back and forth, gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white, repeating one line over and over: "He cannot do this. This breaks everything we were promised." And that sentence? That's where the story cracks open. Because what promises? Who made them? And more importantly, why are they being broken now? Inside Buckingham Palace, room 1844 wasn't just a room anymore. It became a war zone, but not with weapons, not with shouting, with law, with precision. For 6 locked hours, no phones, no assistants, no outside noise, just the king, the Prince of Wales, and a handful of elite legal minds going through one file, one target, one operation: Project Silver. The kind of meeting where history isn't discussed, it's rewritten. Here's where it gets even colder. The king cannot simply remove someone from the line of succession on a whim. That power doesn't exist. Parliament controls that. But there's another tool, quieter, sharper, far more dangerous: the letters patents. These documents define who gets to be called prince, princess, who holds status, who carries weight inside the monarchy. And by changing those rules, subtly, legally, the king doesn't remove someone outright, he empties their position, leaves it hollow, a title with no power, a name with no meaning. And then came the moment, the signature. The pen lifted slowly, the same pen used when he became king. A pause, a silence heavy enough to suffocate the room. And then one sentence, spoken so calmly it almost felt unreal: "The institution must survive the individuals, no matter the personal cost." That wasn't a father speaking. That was a monarch drawing a line. Within hours, the machinery moved, a recommendation sent, a trigger pulled, a rule invoked that shifts everything. Royal status is no longer just about birth, it's about duty, about presence, about service. And if that service disappears, so can everything attached to it. Now ask yourself this: if everything is already signed, already moving, already sealed, then what exactly is left for the Sussexes to fight? Because what's unfolding right now isn't loud, it isn't messy, it's quiet. And that makes it far more dangerous. The kind of quiet where decisions are already made before the world even realizes there was a decision to make. And this is just the beginning, because to understand why this moment happened, why now, why this way, you have to go back to the first crack, the first move, the moment this entire chain reaction began. It didn't start today. It didn't start with that signature, or that redirected red box, or even that chilling sentence spoken inside room 1844. No, No, this was building, quietly, relentlessly, piece by piece for years. What you're seeing now is not a sudden explosion, it's the final detonation of a fuse that was lit a long time ago, and if you trace that fuse back carefully, you begin to see a pattern so precise, so intentional, it almost feels like this ending was inevitable from the very first step. January 8th, 2020, Sandringham. The world remembers it as a shocking announcement, a dramatic exit, headlines screaming about independence and freedom. But inside palace walls, it had a different name, the Great Breach. That wasn't just a nickname, it was a warning label. Because when Harry and Meghan stepped away, they didn't just leave roles behind, they stepped outside the system itself. And the monarchy? It doesn't chase, it doesn't plead, it observes and it adapts. The first consequence came instantly, almost quietly, security removed. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just gone. A subtle message wrapped in protocol: if you are not inside, you are not protected. The shield belongs to those who serve, not those who walk away. Then came March 7th, 2021, the interview that didn't just shake the palace, it rattled the entire structure holding it together. Broadcast to millions, every word echoing across continents. Accusations that didn't just land inside the family, they reached governments, alliances, the Commonwealth itself. And that's when something shifted. This was no longer private. This was no longer repairable. One insider described it in a way that still lingers like a shadow. The moment the monarchy stopped seeing a conversation and started seeing a threat. From there, the pattern only deepened. January 2023, Spare. Not just a book, not just a story, but a breach of something far more delicate: silence. The monarchy survives on silence, on controlled narratives, on things said behind closed doors staying there. And suddenly, everything was out. Personal conflicts, private conversations, details never meant to exist in public space. That wasn't just revealing, that was destabilizing. The gates didn't just close after that. They locked permanently. And then came something even heavier. February 2024. The king's diagnosis. Suddenly, this wasn't just about tension or reputation. This became about time, about legacy, about what happens next. Because when time becomes uncertain, decisions become urgent. Inside the palace, operations accelerated. Plans that might have taken years suddenly couldn't wait, and one reality became impossible to ignore: a branch of the family operating outside the system, speaking against it, profiting from it, was no longer just complicated, it was risky. Then, June 2025, and this is where the line didn't just get crossed, it disappeared completely. A brand, a business, a massive investment push, and at the center of it all, the title. The identity tied to the crown itself becoming a tool in a commercial world thousands of miles away. To outsiders, it looked like ambition. To the palace, it looked like something else entirely: commodification of the crown. And that is something the institution has never tolerated, not once in its history. By the time 2026 arrived, everything was already in motion. Quiet sessions, legal drafts, amendments moving through early stages without noise, without attention, tools being sharpened, mechanisms being prepared. And then, just weeks ago, the final piece fell into place: the loss of legal protection. No shield, no fallback, no institutional cover. And that's when the reality became unavoidable. The system had finished preparing. All that was left was execution. And that execution is what you're witnessing now. Because Project Silver isn't just one decision. It's a structure, a staircase built layer by layer, each step locking into the next until there's nowhere left to move. At the base of that staircase, the letters patent revision, a quiet rewrite of the rules that changes everything without appearing to change anything. Royal status, no longer permanent, no longer automatic, conditional, dependent. And suddenly, without loud announcements, without dramatic declarations, the foundation shifts. Above that, the enforcers, institutions older than most countries, operating without noise but with absolute authority. The Privy Council, the College of Arms, systems that don't argue, don't debate publicly, they simply decide what exists and what doesn't. And if they stop recognizing something, it doesn't matter how real it once felt, it becomes invisible. And then the final layer, the one that changes everything without ever raising its voice: parliamentary alignment. Because once something becomes framed not as family conflict but as national stability, the entire conversation shifts. It's no longer emotional. It's no longer personal. It becomes structural, necessary, inevitable. Now step back and look at it as a whole. Financial separation already done, commercial leverage being stripped away, residency rules quietly disqualifying eligibility, and political Markle framing sealing the outcome. This isn't chaos, this is choreography. Every move placed exactly where it needed to be, long before anyone outside the palace even realized a game was being played. And while all of this unfolds in London, something equally intense is happening thousands of miles away. A restaurant in California, a quiet table, and Meghan not smiling, not performing, but locked into a screen, an encrypted device, not for casual messages, not for public posts, but for something serious. Documents moving in real time, information arriving faster than it can be processed. The kind of moment where everything changes, but nothing around you reflects it yet. Because here's the part that makes this story even more unsettling: it's not finished. There are whispers now, quiet, controlled, almost suppressed, about something left behind. A discovery during a final sweep. Data. Recordings, something being referred to in the most guarded conversations as the Windsor Tapes. Material from a time when everything looked normal, but maybe wasn't. And if that material is real, if it exists, then this entire operation, as precise as it is, might have one vulnerability, one pressure point. So now the question shifts. It's no longer about what the monarchy has done. That part is already in motion, already locked. The real question is what happens next. Because if one side is using silence, structure, and law, and the other side holds something capable of breaking that silence, then this isn't the end of the story. This is the moment right before the next move.